Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Today we're going to take really quite a long trip. We're going to Manipur, India, and this will be a real excursion for me because I've never been to that part of India. And I'm going to rely on my dear friend Jill Carr Harris to be the co host because she knows some of these folks who are going to be our speakers. There's a lot of trouble going on in Manipur, a province, I guess you'd call it a province of India. It's a section of India I can show you with a map and it's over there close to Bangladesh and that sort of area. So Jill Carr Harris is a good friend who lives she's Canadian, but she's also lived in India for the last 37 years and has been working as a Gandhian organizer, peace worker. So she knows India very, very well.
Let me begin by introducing Deben Bachas Batimayam. Because you are based in Manipur, in Imphal, and have been a long-time peace worker, peace activist, as well as a peace teacher, we thought it was so important to have you with us tonight. So thank you for making the time out of a very busy schedule and with a very difficult internet situation. We also have with us tonight C.P. Anto. C.P. Anto is a Catholic priest and very important in the peace field in the northeast of the country. So he is from the adjoining state of Manipur, which is known as Nagaland. And he is the founder of an institute called the Northeastern Institute for Social Science Research. We also have C.P. Anto's colleague, Lily Kobung. Lily is a part of the faculty in this Nagaland Social Research Center. And we also have with us Rajagopal from India, who is the founder of a group called Ekta Parishad. And Rajaji, as he's fondly known as, is been part of an organization which has a chapter in Manipur and has worked for, I think, the last 20 years. The Ekta Parishad has worked in Manipur, particularly on the issue of land.
Okay, Jill, would you bring me up to date with what you know about these people and the conflict going on in Manipur?
So Manipur, as our audience probably knows, is a state in the northeastern part of India. It's one of the seven sisters. So there's 7 states, which spans north of Bangladesh and touches the borders of Myanmar, China, Bhutan, and so on. So it's a set of 7 sisters. And
where's that expression "seven sisters" from? I've seen it before.
It's just the name given to the 7 states of the Northeast. And what is interesting is that most of the states, whether you say Assam or Meghalaya, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, they all have a large number of indigenous groups, and many. And there have been lots of ethnic strife in that region of India. It's been a long time, a Naga strike and so on. So Manipur is within this northeastern region of many ethnic groups. And it has been primarily people who have lived in the plains and people who live in the hills. So it's a mountain. It's the Himalayas that are stretching eastward from Nepal. So some of the hill tribes in Manipur involve the Kukis. and they form about 25% of the Manipur population. And then there are other tribes, Nagas and so on. In the plains is what were also indigenous people, but never recognized as tribals. And they're called Métis. And they were an amalgamation of indigenous peoples. And so what you have in this population of Manipur is you have about 53% of the Métis and about 25% Kukis, and the rest are other communities. So what effectively happened was the land disproportionately is in the hands of the Kukis. They have the majority because the hills are, many of them vertical now. So when we say land, not all of them are cultivatable land or arable land, but they have more of the hill regions. And the Métis, consequently, have a rich valley, but it's only about 11% of the state. Right?
Even though they are something like 52% of the population.
53 on roughly 11%. Of course, there are Métis that live in the hill regions. It's not that they all live, but the majority do. Now, because of the nature of the development and the way the politics works, is that there are 60 members of the Legislative Assembly for the state of Manipur. And 50 of them come from the Métis community and 10 come from the Kuki community.
Oh.
So there's a disproportion of lawmakers, which reflects the fact that the development policies have been largely benefiting the Métis more than the Kukis. And the Kukis have taken this as a point where they don't see the government working for them. They've lost some trust in the governance structure. Added to this, in 2017, the BJP won under the Biren Singh government, and he continued to win the recent election. And Biren Singh has looked like his government has favored, because they're the majority of legislators, the Métis community. And so he particularly looked weak in terms of trying to extend an olive branch to the Kukis, because he's created and BJP, as you know, has a fairly strong agenda to promote.
You got me confused a moment.
Yeah.
He looks like he's favoring the Métis, and I presume he is a Métis. But now he extended an olive branch to the Kukis, and somebody's mad about it. The Métis.
No, he's not able to, because the Kukis have lost faith in his government, because they feel the development projects have all gone to the Métis.
Right. All right.
So there's already a distrust, right? Right. So now what happened was the government of the Supreme Court of India suggested that the Métis could apply. They haven't received. They could apply for a status like the Kukis have, which is an ST, a scheduled tribal status. Under the Constitution of India, there's a reservation, so you can apply to become an ST, a scheduled tribe. Under that, you get the benefits of an ST tribe.
Are there many?
And that means, because Manipur and the Seven Sisters are governed by what is called the sixth schedule of the Constitution of India, the tribal people have rights over the land. They cannot sell the land, and non-tribals cannot live on that land. So by making the Métis and ST, they have not made. They only said you can apply, and no decision has yet been taken. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they were given the possibility to apply, the Kookies wanted to preempt this because their fear is that the government is positively partisan to the Métis, given their majority, and that they would get that scheduled tribal status. And then they would be able to move up into the hills and get land. And the Kookies felt that suddenly their land rights would be in jeopardy. Yeah. That even though there's probably enough land for more people, but this would give many openings as far as the Kookies were concerned for people to grab their land. This
okay,
is
now let me understand. The rule is that if you're a scheduled tribe, you have your own land and nobody can go on it. But now suppose you have two different scheduled tribes. Well, that doesn't mean that one of them can then go on the other tribe's land, or is it interdependent then, and they can move around to other tribes?
They can move around. They can move around. It's not a tribal group. It's a reservation category of all tribes that have land rights, and they have community land rights. So there's a special part of the Constitution because this was a part of the India that is the Himalayas. And so there's many forests up in the Himalayas. And so they gave the community rights of those Himalayan forest lands to the tribals. Mm-hmm. That was deemed under the Constitution. So this, by giving a non-tribal, suddenly becoming a tribal, they would have the same rights as. And so the Kookies, who anyway had lost a sense of feeling that they were important under the existing governance structure, they then forcefully showed that they were not willing. And so the actual event on May 3rd, I believe, but I'm not sure I've got all my facts quite correct. There was a march of Nagas and they were attacked, and then that led to a brawl, and that was the first day, which is now 90 days ago.
When Nagas, why are the Nagas involved? They're not Kookies.
Sorry, I meant the Kookies.
Oh, okay.
The Kookies had an a tribal march to show their strength for having the tribal land rights. They were attacked by some Métis, and then there was an altercation. And from the 3rd of May, there's been a very, very serious killing and counter-killing process going on. And this has been in the form of mobs coming around and circling people and then killing them. So it's been this new technique of mob violence, 800, 1,000 people coming around, or 200 to 300 people coming around targets and removing the targets. It's been happening on both sides. And there's been 150, over 100, some people say 150 people. On the website, I noticed it was 100, but I'm not sure the date of that. 100 people have been killed, and about 70,000 have been forced, because they live in mixed communities, so they have to flee, or their houses have been burnt down, so they can't return to their shelters. 70,000 of them have moved into 349 relief camps, half of them on the Kuki side in a place called Chuma Chandagpur, and the other half in the Imphal is the Métis relief camps, mostly in the valley area. So a total of 9 districts have been affected. And so the relief camps must be accessing populations from these.
Now, what are these relief camps like? Are they tents, or who built them, and who runs them, and who feeds people and stuff?
So it's not like our UN camps. These are schools, colleges, community houses that have been converted into housing people. And they're very poorly managed, and the facilities are very poor. They're overcrowded. There's now forthcoming disease. So now it is summer in Manipur, which is cool, like say Sudbury or northern part of southern Ontario. So it's cool, but it's not winter. And they're managing, the government is providing some food, but not a sufficient amount. And schools have stopped for these affected districts. And so the children, the mothers, and so on are in these 349 relief camps. So people want to go home. People want their life back. It's been 3 months. And meanwhile, there's now drones. There's now huge guns. I mean, we're not talking about just pistols now. Arms have been coming. So 800 arms, I believe, came from Myanmar. So that must have been 8,000 guns from Myanmar are coming across the border to help the Kukis. 4,000 guns have come from artillery banks. It looks like the government has been a little unwatchful of people grabbing the police guns. But that's
I was just wondering where they got the guns. I mean, these are weapons that the police in Myanmar would have been using.
Yeah, so then I don't know which guns came across from Myanmar. I just read it on the website. But 4,000, so there's various police centers that have their munitions and their guns, and these have been stolen, or they've been taken by the different groups. So there's huge amount of weaponry that are now in the hands of the Kukis and Métis. So they're not just mob violence, but there's shooting. There's drones being sent that are blowing up. So it's moving into full-scale civil war. And if we see what the government response is, so the government clearly did not act early enough to stop it early enough, and now it's very, very difficult. There is 40,000 paramilitary troops, what we call the CRPF, the Central Reserve Police Force. These are not army, not police, but come in for these purposes. There's the Assam Rifles. So there's many paramilitary groups, plus there's now talk about the Indian Army getting involved. So, or maybe they have already. I'm not completely up to date on that. So it's very chaotic. There is 2 areas. So there's a buffer zone that has been created. The Kukis are on one side, the Métis are on one side, and it's difficult to cross that buffer zone.
Are the people themselves trying to stay separate, or is there a government force or somebody trying to keep them separate?
Government forces paramilitary forces keeping them separate, correct. One of the big concerns is food. So because of this civil strife, and because the growing season is from May onwards, no food has been cultivated. across Manipur. So pretty soon they're going to run out of food supplies. So this is a very difficult moment.
What kind of population size are we talking about?
I actually don't know if 5.5 million is the correct figure. So I better not say. I don't know. All I know is that there is 70,000 refugees in the refugee camps, and 8 districts have been affected, not the full population. Yeah. So
what I'm wondering is other factors that may have some bearing on their hostility or their relationship. They're ethnically separate, but how different are they? Do they look different? Do they dress different? Do they have different language? Do they have different religions? Do they are there cultural differences that would play into this, or are they can they see each other on the street? If they pass, can they each identify who's a Kuki and who's a Métis?
Not always, but because they have to hear the name, but they do have some characteristic facial differences. So, they're not always sure of which is a Kuki and which is a Métis. But the name and the location of their where they live is usually within those communities. So it's the location of their place. It's also their dress, and it's their language, and it's some facial characteristics.
How different are they in appearance or language or their clothing?
Different, because when you work in the hills, you have to have a different kind of way you have the sari, and different quality of sari, maybe thicker, it's cooler, so definitely there's a dress difference. Of course, there's been a lot of amalgamation too, because they've coexisted for a long time. So that's why it's also necessary that they go for the shelters and burn the shelters, right? Because they feel that by burning the shelters, then they're flushing out the community from those areas, right? Which they feel should not be there.
And you mentioned, I've seen some reference to some incident where women were abused, 2 women.
So I think it was around the 7th of May, there was one incident, but there have been periodically different media that have brought up different rape incidents. So this was an incident of 2 Kuki women who were naked, who were surrounded by 800 to 1,000 Métis men, and they were moving them, and they had been gang raped. And some of the gang rape was on film, and then their walking naked was filmed, and men groping their body parts was filmed as they were walking, and very ugly verbal interaction. And this was filmed, but only went viral about 3 weeks ago. For some reason, it was put under wraps. Nobody saw it, but somebody found it, put it on the social media, and
so
it went
viral. It
had
happened before, but
2 months, 2 months before. Yeah. Over 2 months before.
And that exacerbated the tensions for sure.
So that immediately woke up international interest, like what's happening here, and also got women across India to basically stand up and say, this is not on. This has gone too far. And the Kukis maintain that they have not raped Métis, and it's only happened to Kuki women. But I think this is just a perception, because once violence gets to that extent, anything goes, but that is the perception that you hear from cookies is that we haven't raped anybody. I mean, this is sort of beyond what should be done. So yeah, so this is what you hear, but I would caution people to say that it's on both sides.
Okay, now the Métis, as I hear it, are mostly Hindu, and the cookies are mostly Christian. Is that right? And
That's right.
And clearly, the BJP government is known to be favorable to Hindus generally. Just really discriminatory.
Yes. I mean, I think it would be a mistake to see it as a Hindu-Christian violence. I think it's much more ethnic because even the Christian cookies are also animists, so it has a lot more to do with their culture than it is just their religion, their culture of hill people, their culture wanting to be preserved in the forests, them not wanting this other ethnic group to come into their areas, take their resources. So I think it's much more that, but some people would like to make it a Hindu-Christian struggle because it's a minority and a majority, and then it would fit a narrative of the majoritarianism. I think that would be very unfortunate because there are also Métis who are Christian, and there are, etc. So it's much more nuanced, much more nuanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so it does not.
But I have to say that 120 churches have been burnt down. So, but that's because they know it's close to the Kuki sentiments. But 17 temples have also been burnt down. So it's also a way to get back at the people. Yeah.
It does not look as if it's going to be easily cooling off by itself, and something needs to be done from outside. Is that right?
So the first, in terms of containing the conflict before any kind of reconciliation, I think that would require humanitarian aid. So I would make a plea to anyone watching this that if there's any Manipuri groups that you can contact to provide some assistance to, because the relief camps desperately need tin sheets, bedding, clothes, food, and any money towards that would be welcomed. Of course, there's also a need for medical because a lot of women and children have been injured, traumatized, raped. So medical and health facilities is very important. Living in relief camps is not going to last long. People will soon need livelihood in order to continue to survive without mass starvation. So livelihood support for women in particular. But then I think peace building also has to begin, and the peace building is seen in terms of intra-religious harmony. So bringing the cultures via the religions together and in a spirit of greater understanding, getting certain officials to set up peace teams, in earlier areas in an adjacent struggle in Nagaland some years back. Gandhians went there and they walked through villages and tried to go person by person, village by village to bring some solace and sense that peace is more important. So this long-term engagement, particularly with the youth, and to work with the political leaders to try to be more balanced in their development efforts with the minorities, so that the majority is not just inflamed Yeah. So these are all measures which, fortunately, the group I'm associated with, Ekta Parishad, has a team there now, and they're working on the humanitarian aid. They met the governor. And so I think there are many groups who are trying to see how to respond.
So thank you so much. And let's go on now and talk to our guests who are, I believe some of them are there in Manipur.
I think we should start with Debin to really speak about what can you really begin to describe, Debin, for the audience, what has happened after May 3rd that has ignited this giant conflict? And can you talk a little bit about the long-standing difficulties that may have been substratum to this conflict, but which have really erupted today?
Tensions were building up before May 2 for almost over 2-3 months, when the present government, which is also ruled by the same party that rules at the center, have, they withdrew from a ceasefire agreement which was signed between the government of India, the Kuki armed groups known as KNO, Kuki National Organization, and the UPF, that stands for United People's Front. And these two groups signed a ceasefire agreement known as SOO. So this was signed in the year 2008. Prior to that, these armed groups are operating all over hill area, which are predominantly inhabited by Kuki populations. So these groups also have their own political aspirations. Namely, they have been sort of demanding and fighting for something called Kuki homeland within the Constitution of India, by carving out certain portion of Manipur, largely, and maybe a little bit of adjoining states area. So this is what has been going on as a background. Kuki armed group, the political organization, had certainly very clear political aspirations. So when this was signed in 2008, it was signed between the Kuki militant groups and the government of India, but later on, the government of Manipur decided to join in. So then it became tripartite agreement, not to act upon one another. So it became a tripartite. So a lot of I think number of series of peace talk happen in Delhi, but at the same time, Manipur also has been badly impacted by this drug business from across Myanmar. What used to be known as the Golden Triangle, based in Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand. These are the countries which are involved in manufacturing drugs, and then these drugs used to pass through Manipur. And so from 1980s, generation of youth came under the influence of drugs, and many people became traffickers, and big business people also came in. So there's a whole nexus of political leaders, the security forces, and armed groups, all linked together, got into this business. And so so all of these armed groups got involved into it, in connivance of the security forces or the government at times, and at times in direct partnership with unholy partnership, which they don't want to publicate, but then things are going on because there has been a lot of publications, official documents, which had revealed that this kind of nexus is going on within the political class, the bureaucracy, and also the security forces and armed groups. And so then when this Golden Triangle actually died down. 30,000 square kilometers, no, acres of area in the hills had poppy plantation all of a sudden. And then these poppy plantations were happening mostly in the Kuki area, also partly in the Naga area. So then people in Manipur, particularly civil society organization, begin to realize there was something very big problem in future waiting for them.
Kevin,
Because
can I
yes,
ask you to talk about the Myanmar struggle and how that
yeah,
may have also
yeah,
impacted?
yeah. During the COVID, the military coup that took place in Myanmar, dislodging the elected democratic government of Aung San Suu Kyi, there was the military junta begin to put a lot of pressure on many of the tribal groups in the periphery of the country, Myanmar. So all over the periphery, like starting from the northern adjoining China to areas which are adjoining to India, from the north to the south. And towards the south are the Kuki Chin people who also have their own armed groups, and they also have been struggling or fighting for their own political space there in Myanmar. So they came under quite heavy pressure when military junta took place, and so a lot of military action took place very recently, because of which a lot of population also started fleeing towards Manipur illegally. So like in the south of Manipur, there is a state called Mizoram, which is the last in the northeastern region, state, one of the state. And this state called Mizoram is mostly inhabited by Mizo people who has very close affinity with the Kuki people. They almost can communicate with the same language with slight variation here and there. So there's a lot of affinity, close affinity with this group. So Mizoram decided to host, rather give shelter to thousands of these, people who were fleeing from Myanmar in Manipur, where those hill areas which are adjoining to Myanmar and also inhabited by Kuki people had a lot of this infiltration going on, and also they also decided to give shelter to them. And some of these, according to the government report, says were also involved in the present crisis because they also were, fighting for their survival, and when they saw their own brethren were also fighting for their some kind of security or lane in India. Under pressure, without options, I think they were also put pressure to join in the struggle.
When these refugees were coming and taking shelter, there was a greater population, and maybe then when the Métis felt that they wanted to expand their land, it was becoming more difficult, was it not? Because the population had increased.
Little slight correction in the lane population proportion between the hill and valley. Manipur comprises of hill and valley. Hill area comprises of 90% of the total lane area, which is about 22,723 square kilometers. So almost 22,000 square kilometers are the hills. There are ranges of hills which actually surrounds the valley. Valley is located in the center of these ranges of hill, and these hills run from south, from the north to the south. It is in the eastern Himalaya, falling down to the south. So if you look at the density of population between the valley, which is a small portion, this is not even 11. This is like some of the latest research here in Manipur says it is just 8%, where Meiteis have some kind of effective presence, but do not have any legal right to protect over it. Whereas Meitei as a population, undoubtedly, without any dispute, is indigenous people of the valley.
What are they fighting about, and what should be done about it?
culturally, Meitei people who Jill has said now comprises of 55 or less than that. This population is on a decline because the reproductive rate has fallen down to 1.7, which is below the optimal, by which they cannot grow their population anymore. On the other side, we have politically well organized uh, group of people called the Naga in most of the northern and the northern hills, eastern hills and western hills, and the Kukis on the southern hills and partly eastern and western hills. You can imagine a valley surrounded by hills, and that's how I'm describing it. And the remaining population, there is about 45% are Kukis and Nagas. And when we say Naga, they are not a single tribe.
Yeah, but why do we need to even think about the Naga people? What are they
Because it's
involved
about
in this
land.
fight? Huh?
It's about land. The conflict is about land,
Okay.
and there has been a similar fight, similar violent conflict between the Naga and Kuki between 1992 to 1996. And that time, Nagas were trying to create a larger Naga area under independent government. And that time they realized that many Kuki people have already got into their land, ancestral domain into the territory. So they were trying to push the Kuki populations from the Naga area. So that resulted into death of more than 1,000 people and displacement of 50,000 people at that point of time, and the burning of some 20 to 30,000 houses at that point of time. Similar incident took place. So a lot of the relocation of the population took place at that point of time. The Kukis had to face the pressure actually, and so they had to leave several villages, which the Nagas claim is their ancestral area, and the Kukis have forcibly or by by hook or crook they have settled here. So a lot of relocation took place. So they actually got pushed back towards the south.
I want to know who's fighting whom right now. Why?
Sure.
What are they fighting about?
Okay, this is also about the land only, the same question. Now, what is happening here is that the Meitei people, as Jill has said, were demanding for ST status, that is scheduled tribe status. Scheduled tribe status allows or gives you the right to protect the land that you claim to be your ancestral land. That gets a constitutional protection. And the reason why Meiteis were demanding for this is that they realized that although they live on their own ancestral land, but they have no control over it, they have no right to protect over it. Any person from rest of India, any tribal group from whether Naga or Kuki can come and buy a piece of land and settle there for permanent. Once a piece of land is gone to any of the ST persons, then it is gone permanently. You cannot reclaim it. You can't even buy it back because the law doesn't allow, except for the government who has absolute right on the land. So
Ajaji, I'm just wondering if we can look at the actual refugee camps, the gun running, what is going on now in terms of the violence.
See, a conflict, like Devin said, is not happening in one day. This is building up. So this was already building up for quite some time. And this was a failure on the side of the system, the government, not to take note of it and try to contain it. So somehow we allowed this to grow and grow and grow. And finally, we have come to a situation where it is becoming very difficult to control. So the failure was also on the side of the state not to really take notice of it when it was building up. And the second thing is that, Northeast has too many ethnic groups. This is not just Kukis and Nagas or Kukis and Meiteis. There are many ethnic groups and they all have their own aspiration for separate governance, separate state, etc. So anytime a tension can flare up, a problem can come up in northeastern state. So the way we governed the way India governs Northeast without a real policy to take care of different aspirations, different ethnics, languages, ethnics, interest. I think we are giving possibility for more and more such struggles to come up. So I think one should be very careful. One should learn from this, that the governance or policy for Northeast need to be drawn in a way keeping the aspiration of different ethnic groups and their interest in mind, and which is urgent to my mind. It is an urgent need. And even now, I think you were asking about what need to be done. We will come to that soon. But then I think there's a lot to be done outside, like Devon was also proposing, that the wounds are very deep now because of so much of killing and conflict and mistrust. The wounds are so deep that probably a dialogue should begin outside, where Metis and Cookies are not directly involved in this conflict, but the dialogue can begin outside, and from there the message can go back. If you remember, when we were having a dialogue between people from Azerbaijan and Armenia in Georgia, how difficult it was to begin, because that is a kind of mistrust that happens in course of time. So a dialogue outside will be a very good idea. And today, when Mr. Deben and group met the honorable governor of the state, she also suggested that, and at the moment this fight is going on, that need to end, so that some very, very positive interventions can begin in that area. So, like Jill said, there is an element of land conflict there, because Metis don't have as much land as Cookies. But the court order was only allowing the Metis to apply for a status. Nothing was decided. The Metis went to the court, and the court said, okay, you can apply if you want. You can start your procedure. The government of India or President of India will decide ultimately whether that status can be given to you or not. But even this allowance that you can go and apply made Cookie young people very, very unhappy, and they began the fight. So I think it was too early a provocation, to my mind, too early a provocation. And this must have happened because of a lot of building up in the past. So many houses are razed to the ground, and rebuild all these houses will mean quite a bit of work. And then people are not able to go to their agriculture field. So this year they will not get into agriculture. So there will be no food, no crop this year. So the food crisis are going to come. So there is already a crisis of shelter. Winter is going to come, and there will be a real crisis of food in the long run. So some of the relief operations are also very, very important, while we continue to work on peace building and trust building between these two communities. And Anto is in the field, so you can also get some feedback from Anto. Yeah, thank you.
Just ask CP Anto G to give his perspective. I believe you were in Manipur a couple of weeks ago, Anto G, and how you see the situation.
I personally visited on 21st of June 2023 in the Kuki resided Kangopi, and it was so disheartening for me to see the people of children, the women are all struggling in the camp, and it was very discouraging and heart-paining to see that the youth and women, they wanted to get back into their own homes. But we know that they have no place to go back. At the same time, they are not happy to be in the camp, not at all happy to be in the camp. The philanthropists are doing something to get things done, but at the same time, many villages, the relief camps were set up in many interior places, and the food provisions were not able to reach them, and they were literally struggling. And immediately we did a lot of relief services in collaboration with the Christian Forum Dimapur and the Peace Channel, a youth peace movement. And we could reach to the villages, and we also could interact and play with the youth and children. And in the evening hours, we also had a very interactive sharing with the Christian Forum Manipur. The 26th of July, we visited three camps in Fall. That was very, again, they are deprived of even human rights, deprived of basic human rights. They were not able to get sufficient food.
I think I've understood there's 70,000 people in refugee camps, just to add to the scale of the issue. No? And I've also understood there's a buffer zone between the Métis communities and the Kuki communities that is being guarded. So they're absolutely kept separate. So you're traversing over to the Métis side. Did you find that people were open to you coming back and forth and giving them help and so on? How did you feel in terms of this aspect?
Anyone who is suffering are our brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
And rather than labeling them, so as of now, we know that 181 in record have lost their life. Over 300 churches were also destroyed. But unfortunately, 1,988 houses of Meiteis also were destroyed, along with the 1,425 Kuki members' families also lost their houses.
Who's suffered the most? Are they equally having their houses burned down? Is one group more dominant than the other? These refugee camps, are they equally Métis and Kuki, and they're segregated so that they're not in contact with each other? And somebody is providing food to them, but not enough. Can we get some, just general overall picture of what it looks like there now?
Ma'am, it is true, they're completely segregated from each other. They don't have any interaction with each other. The Kuki community members have gone to their villages in two districts, that is Kangopi and Churachambur, and they are far away from the Métis community as of now. The buffer zone, what we have been talking about, that area is completely evacuated, and the people don't stay in that buffer zone. The Kuki communities, Kuki tribals who were staying there earlier, they are no more staying, and they are moved to their villages. At the same time, the Métis and Kukis, they have no connection as of now.
Refugees are more one group than the other, or are they equal? And who's burning whose houses down? Are they equally burning each other, or is one group being more victimized and more abused than the other one? Is one group attacking the other, or are they equally fighting each other on their own, each other's land?
Almost 3 months after this began, there is no let up from any intention to get engaged in further fight, and both has been destroying one another actually. But in terms of number of houses destroyed and number of people displaced, Métis people are getting more.
There are refugee camps. Who's running the refugee camps? Who's taking care of these people? And what kind of intervention is being made to try to stop the fighting, if any? And what is this all about, the women being raped?
So let me first answer you who is running the camp. When the displacement began, all of a sudden from May 3rd, when this trouble began, both the communities started making their own arrangement. Later on, the government responded and allotted places like, for example, school, colleges, and government facilities, they moved the displaced people into those camps, and into those camps now we almost do not have any community improvised camp, but all government run camps, and government is making all efforts on both the sides to reach out whatever provisions they have, including food and health services and all that. But the problem is because there is a physical separation between the two, total separation, and no Kuki can go to Meitei area, no Meiteis can go to Kuki area. So therefore, outsiders, neutral people, like for example, Father Anto and his group could come and go across both the communities to deliver the services. But then in the heat of this conflict, say in the first 1 month, nothing was moving.
Is there any negotiation? Is there
Mhm.
any conflict resolution process? Are there police? Are there, is the army protecting people? What is being done to actually stop the fighting and protect people?
This is very disappointing for us also. We have submitted several representations to the governor and to the central government to stop the violence. And in fact, when this fight began, in the first week itself, the central government started moving in a lot of troops. Now we have around 70,000 troops on the ground, including Rapid Action Force, which is a paramilitary forces. This is what the people have been questioning the government also. What these troops are doing, if they are not able to stop the fight between the two communities, whether they are and if they are not able to locate themselves in those strategic areas where shootings are taking place one against another, that's a big question. And in fact, the Kuki people thinks that the Manipur police forces are taking side with the Meitei people, along with the government. On the other side, Meitei people think that certain paramilitary forces, central paramilitary forces, are taking side based on the fact that there has been a suspension of operation, an agreement between the Kuki armed group and the government of India. And these Kuki armed groups were kept in certain designated camps under the supervision of a paramilitary force called Assam Rifle. And so they almost look after them. So Meitei think that these paramilitary forces are helping the Kukis fight the Meitei. So the security forces itself, their neutrality itself is being questioned.
Do the leaders, have they been doing any negotiation?
No,
Is it-
not at all.
No. And does the
Yeah.
government deal with these leaders separately? What's the relationship among the people who should be making decisions for the whole communities? Are they interacting? Is the government trying to help facilitate their dialogue, or what?
Yes. No, the government is not helping any dialogue process, but rather they are trying to meet some groups on Kuki side and also Meitei side separately. The Home Minister visited a month after the trouble broke out. He stayed in the state for 3 days, during which time he visited both sides, the Kuki-dominated area, as also in Imphal, which is the capital city, where he met number of civil society leaders. He also tried to meet the Kuki side also, the armed group as well as the civil society leaders. Some of these leaders were called to Delhi. He had called a couple of times the political leaders, elected political leaders from both sides separately, and they talked to one another. They did not talk to one another, but the Home Minister engaged them in separate talks, not together. So the Home Minister has not been able to put both the parties together on a single table. That's unfortunately what is happening.
Well, I think picking up on what Rajgopal said, that a team went to meet the governor today, of which Deben, I believe you were there. So
Yeah.
there is a big effort to work with the governor of the state.
The discussion was interesting according to the delegation, and the governor has shown interest that civil society organizations, especially with some Gandhian peace background, people should come and help in this process. Why is it important now? Because the Kukis have no faith in the state. Because Kukis feel that the state is completely with the Meiteis. And which may not be true, but then the perception is that. And some people are trying to show that this is more of a Hindu-Christian struggle, but this is not actually Hindu-Christian struggle. This is more of a struggle that was going on for so long about territory and status, etc. So I think the more we try to make it a Hindu-Christian struggle, the polarization that is happening in the country will become complete. But try to bring peace immediately by moving in. On one side, engaging in relief operations, because that is urgent, to care for their housing and food, etc. At least help the government in their relief operations. And then try to see the peace building process by bringing young people together, having dialogue, and then slowly expanding this dialogue base and bringing about peace between these two groups. Otherwise, it is going to go for very, very long because the wounds are so deep.
Lily, do you want to say anything, since you've not spoken so far, about ways of building peace among women?
So Manipur violence that erupted on the 3rd of May led to a colossal destructions of more than 359 churches and quarters, and 197 villages belonging to the Kuki Zhou community were totally burned down. And it left more than 50,000 tribals displaced, not only from their house, but displaced from their livelihood. And there are more than 100 confirmed deaths. And some of the deaths are still laying in Imphal, in RIMS hospitals. And their bodies are still unclaimed because nobody can go in, because nobody from the Kuki Zhou community could venture into Imphal Valley to claim their dead bodies. And even dead bodies haven't received the proper burials. And this, what ensued, the Manipur violence after post-Part May, is the violations or the crime against women and children. So there is a grave violations of human rights. For instance, it was only because of the viral video where 2 Kuki Zhou women were paraded naked, groped, gang raped, that the nations understood the intensity and the grave situations that is happening in Manipur, especially to the minority tribal communities. Because after the violence, internet connectivity was shut down. There was no place for the tribals to voice out their concern, nor there was any channel where they could bring out the issues that they are facing. Because at the end of the day, what happened is that all the medias are concentrated in Imphal, and it is under the hands of the majoritarian. So that was the plight. And it was only when the video was viral that even India as a nation wake up to the gravity of the human rights violations that is happening. And there are many instances of rape cases, manhandling of women, and especially children, even a 7-year-old children who was injured and where his mother and his relative were on their way to access healthcare services. The mob prevented them, and along with the ambulances, they were burned down. These are some of the instances, but nobody was there to report, even though so many FIR has been filed, but no cognizance was taken by the state government.
And what we're trying to do, both for the sake of Debin and Lily, is to use this to raise awareness here, and possibly some support we can look into to help the relief camps, which are in dire situation, to help with the 6,000 FIRs that are being filed, to help with the medical treatment for rape victims and children who have been harmed. So obviously there's a huge effort that the Indian government and the state government largely responsible for, but in which if there is any international support would give a little extra support and show that anywhere we would like to see this cessation of hostilities and a process of reconciliation. We want to thank everybody for this heartfelt interaction. I know, Debin, we were not able to give time to fully understand the context. Lily, we were not able to hear your full story, but you've given us enough to begin, and I hope we can learn more and have more of these to show solidarity and support for a more peaceful Manipur.
Thank you so much, Jill. I needed help. I couldn't make sense of what I was hearing, but I'm so glad you were able to contribute that. And I'm very grateful to everybody for appearing in this conversation. And I certainly wish that somebody can find a solution to the problem so that there can be reconciliation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Project Save the World produces these forums, and this is episode 565. You can watch them or listen to them as audio podcasts on our website, tosavetheworld.ca. People share information there about 6 global issues, and I want you to go there too. You can find a particular talk show by entering its title or episode number in the search bar, or the name of one of the guest speakers. Project Save the World also produces a quarterly online publication, Peace Magazine. You can subscribe for $20 Canadian per year. Just go to pressreader.com on your browser, and in the search bar, enter the word peace. You'll see buttons to click to subscribe.